you circulated some very interesting data amongst the Decidr faithful here at Decidr Towers. And I thought it'd be pertinent to throw you in front of or behind a mic rather, and for us to talk about it. So it's in regard to AI readiness. Now, you and I have sat here and we've done multiple conversations and multiple pieces of content encouraging people to be ready for AI. Now, firstly, let's start with a little bit of context around these numbers, and then let's talk about what that means for Australia and Australian SMEs.
Yeah, look, the numbers just really resonated with me here in Australia, having gone through this, and the hundreds of conversations we've had with founders, CEOs around AI readiness and ROI, and are we ready? What are we testing? And these numbers came out, from a recent survey of 100 CEOs, founders globally, heavily focused on North America and Europe, which is markets we look at quite closely as kind of being a bit more, ahead of the curve, so to speak. So it just, every single one of the numbers, every single one of the verbatim responses that we went through resonated with what we are seeing here in the market, which is the reason why I kind of jumped on them and shared them, because it was kind of validation, if anything, of what we see and what we're trying to do. So
cool.
Some big key standouts,
So tell me about these standouts. Tell me about the data. Like, I know that there were a few very interesting statistics that came out, but I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and feelings as to the ones that you think are the most pertinent.
So there's probably three. The first one is 88%. So very big number. 88% of CEOs say they have budget, but they have a lack of confidence to deploy it. I would say that money does not equal momentum. So overwhelmingly CEOs say, yes, we have a budget assigned for AI projects, but we're nervous about deploying it because of a lack of insights on the ROI side of things. And we kind of work through those processes with CEOs. We've got quite a complicated, complex, I will say, AI readiness calculator that can actually give some insight into that and some transparency on that. But we hear that all the time is, yes, we've got budget. It's kind of one of the questions we ask. Yes, we've got budget, but we're actually a bit nervous about this. So 88% of CEOs was kind of mind-blowing, really. I didn't think it would be that high. The second one, so I would say, money does not equal momentum. Even though you've assigned budget, there's still some nervousness around what to go, which kind of leads on to the second point, which was 72%. So 88% of CEOs say they've got AI budget assigned, but they don't know where to deploy it. 72% of CEOs say that they are stuck in pilot research phases, for want of a better word. So they haven't yet moved from experimenting with AI as some sort of cool test to getting full value from it throughout their whole organization. So I would say they're stuck in pilot purgatory. So there's some people testing some things over here, they're playing around with Copilot here, or they've got some kind of use case in one of their applications here, but they haven't yet moved beyond that phase. And again, it's kind of that nervousness around, we don't know really where to aim, we don't know where to start. We've got some tests going on here, but that's not adding value to the full organization. So
of course,
vast majority of CEOs have budget, and 3/4 of CEOs are still stuck in that pilot research phase.
And presumably none of that is in the way that we would talk about it, agentic. They're just adding stacked tools to an already cluttered system, right?
Correct. They're just that, but they've got some tool in their technology stack,
right?
And they've added an AI component to it. I would classify that as a pilot or as a research phase, like they're testing the water. And it's that nervousness around, yes, they're telling, the market that they've got budget for a bigger piece to add value across the whole organization, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it. They haven't built a roadmap. So very interesting. And these are the things we hear all the time. And they're the kind of things that we kind of help businesses with, because there is that step before you go all in and full throttle. You need to know all the things you could do that could add value to your business, and you need to know a place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that stood out were blockers. Talk to me about blockers.
Yeah, so that was the third point. So CEOs have budget, they're not sure where to deploy it. 3/4 of them are kind of stuck in pilot purgatory, and they were very open as well with the verbatim about what those common blockers are. So why are you not sure about the ROI? Why are you stuck in a pilot purgatory phase, and the common blockers are distinguishing between the hype of AI and the reality of AI.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, we've been sent 1 million research papers. Yes, people send me emails all the time. Yes, my chairman is asking me to do something about AI. Yes, the team are kind of sending me things that are interesting, but distinguishing the hype of that, what I would call the hype, and there's lots of that, as we all know, to the actually reality. So that was a common blocker. Half of the CEOs said that was a common one. Probably the most interesting one, and it was 42%, was a common blocker, was an AI roadmap. They don't have an AI roadmap. We have an actual product now that we've developed, which is an AI roadmap, and that's come about because of exactly the same thing, that when we engage with customers, the number one question is, where do we start? We don't know where to start. We kind of know some of the things we can do. So common blockers, distinguishing hype from reality, an AI roadmap. We don't have an AI roadmap. We don't know where to start with one. And the third one is the starting point. What is of that roadmap? What is the one thing that's going to deliver the ROI first thing? And that's the number one question that we get. That was probably the one that resonated the most, regardless of the number of businesses saying they've got money but they don't know where to deploy it.
Yeah.
Was starting point. That's the number one question we get, is where do we start?
And what do we say? What do we say to that?
Well, we do a phased process for them. Some of these consultations can last an hour because it's fairly straightforward businesses. Some of them can last 6 weeks, right? So we go through this process of building them an AI roadmap, and that's understanding their data, understanding their systems, understanding their challenges, and we map out the whole thing, and we build a statement of work for them to say, these are all the things you should be doing, and here's the place to start. We'd be mad to say you can do all this all at once. It's a phased approach, it's a timeline, but ultimately it's the place to start, and it usually comes back to ROI. And I think the other interesting thing is that we've determined, we've done probably 25 of these now, they're big pieces of work, is what comes out of that piece of work as a starting point is often, very often, different than what they thought was the starting point. So we do a value versus effort piece of work where we look at what that individual use case, what value it would bring to the business and what the effort it would be to do it. Put those two things together and put some numbers around it, and what you end up with is the starting point. That's what the number one question we get. So yeah, the whole thing just resonated with us and kind of put some numbers around. It's not just the Australian market, it's actually the US market and the European market as well, because this survey was kind of spread across the globe. So very interesting.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. And I think it will be interesting to see how that evolves. Where you mentioned at the start how you think the Australian market perhaps isn't quite as advanced as perhaps, Europe or the States. And I think what AI does is it forces your hand to be more advanced much more quickly than you might be ready for. So it will be fascinating to see whether or not that evolution and that learning curve is accelerated by the sheer opportunity and sheer ability of the technology. So we might feel like we're, perhaps a little bit behind at the moment, but I dare say that is going to change very, very rapidly.
Yeah, I think it will. I think the number one insight, what does it all mean? I would sum it down to one sentence. The key insight would be the strategy, the ROI, the starting point, and being able to identify those things for AI is as important as the technology itself. That's what that sums the whole thing up for me. That's kind of some of the way we were thinking about it in the Australian market, but some of these numbers and the verbatim back from global CEOs and founders suggest the same thing. How you approach it, where to start, your roadmap is as important as the technology itself. Because if you don't get that right, and it's not too complicated a process, AI in general is a pretty nascent category. The road mapping of AI is there's not many people doing it, right? But I would suggest it's a prerequisite. I mean, businesses can do this themselves. If you understand your P&L, if you understand your data and your systems, and you understand your key challenges, you could probably do it yourself. We find that most businesses reach out to us because we've done it before. It's not an overly expensive process. It's not an overly complicated process, but we now have tangible evidence that from multiple regions around the world, everyone's saying the same thing. We've got money. We don't know where to deploy it. We're nervous about ROI. We don't have a roadmap. We're trying to distinguish between hype and reality, and we don't know what the starting point is. And the important point is that this is what we do on a daily basis. We have a product that does that.
Yeah.
And that gives you that clarity, and hopefully we'll unlock that 88% of CEOs that say, yeah, we've got the budget assigned, but we're not really sure where to start. We're not really sure the ROI.
That 88% will swiftly come down.
Yeah, there's no there's no fear of AI anymore. I think everybody's moved beyond that, but they are still stuck in that purgatory of, yeah, we know it's a thing, but don't know all the things we could do, but we don't know where to start. Like that's endemic across businesses. And with some experience and some knowledge of your business and your systems and your challenges, you can get to that point quite quickly.
Well, I think, as you say, as we've talked about, this is going to evolve, and I'd love for you to come back as the statistics evolve, because they are changing on a daily basis. I'd love for us to iterate on this again and again and again, just to sort of keep an eye on what those statistics are saying. So thank you for joining me. It was short, it was sharp, it was succinct, and we love that. Thank you to everyone for watching. And if you'd like to investigate more about how you can upgrade your business, make sure you go to Decidr.ai.